I'm Allison June Mabe, Governmental Affairs Program Manager, here with Joe Stewart, Chief Advocacy Officer. This week, the North Carolina General Assembly has adjourned after passing a budget on July 2nd. They should be back towards the end of the month. Last week, we did highlight some things in the budget containing pay raises for state employees, funding Hurricane Helene relief, and some Medicaid rebates.
That's right, Allison June. The governor did sign the budget bill this week. He said it wasn't perfect, but it was mostly good and not entirely bad. And the budget did pass with pretty significant bipartisan margin. So I think it was a safe assumption that Governor Stein was going to sign this, and he did. A few of the things you mentioned that are big ticket items in there. $1 billion was allocated for the Medicaid rebates. This is the anticipated amount of cost that there will be incurred over the next fiscal year, I guess the current fiscal year. It started July 1st for the 3 million North Carolinians that get their health benefits through the state-run Medicaid program. There was, as you've mentioned, $700 million for Hurricane Helene relief. $450 million of that was dedicated for funding that was necessary to trigger a federal match of the funds that were being spent in the western part of the state. Another $100 million added to child care subsidy through the State Department of Health and Human Services to help modest income households afford child care. A significant problem in our state with families of all kinds trying to find affordable child care. $200 million allocated to the state's children's hospital. This was considered a sticking point between the House and the Senate that led to the impasse that resulted in no budget being passed last year. But the House Speaker, Destin Hall, and the President Pro Tem of the Senate, Phil Berger, came to an agreement to restore the $200 million that had previously been agreed for the new children's hospital. One of the things that was raised by Senator Berger late in the negotiations between the House and the Senate was an appropriation of some money to fund a Major League Baseball stadium should the state get a team, although that was not in the final budget package. Apparently that was dropped out. A couple of other things I wanted to mention that are contained in the budget, not necessarily budget items per se. There was a provision to eliminate the sales tax exemption that data centers had enjoyed on the cost that they pay for the electricity needed to run the data centers. Other sales tax exemptions that data centers get, like the purchase of software and other pieces of equipment and that sort of stuff, still in place. But there was an attempt to try to regenerate some revenue to the state from these data centers by no longer allowing them to not pay sales tax on the electricity they need. Interesting, no one really knew this was coming. The legislature decided, and it was contained in the budget, to move the state's building code council out of the Office of State Fire Marshal, which, as we know, is separate from the Department of Insurance now. It used to be contained there, and a few years ago, the legislature moved it out. But the entire Building Code Council and the administration of that is now in the Department of Labor, interestingly enough. Not sure what prompted that, but that certainly did happen. A little bit, the governor complained somewhat that the Republican leaders in the General Assembly and the budget further eroded his authority, taken away from the Office of Administration, the management of state property, and reducing the number of appointments the governor has to certain commissions, including the Real Estate Commission and the Historical Preservation Commission, interestingly enough. One other thing that I'll mention, we mentioned this previously, there was contained in the budget a provision when a motorist, someone that has a registered vehicle, gets from the DMV, that there's no longer liability coverage on that vehicle. They had previously just 10 days to respond. Now that's been extended to 30 days. The idea being that it takes so long because all of that notice is sent out by mail that the person may not get the notice that they have to do something, take some action to make sure the vehicle is insured, that it's a very short turnaround time. So that probably is a beneficial thing to do.
Wow, lots to unpack. That's very interesting, Joe. We also want to mention how proud we are for IANC to be a part of a coalition of groups that help wildlife crossing funding, about $10 million. What this does, it helps animals safely cross busy roads and accidents, and it also just keeps both drivers and wildlife safe as well.
Yeah, two other things I want to mention real quick. When the legislature reconvenes on July 27th, it looks like it'll take them probably at least to the end of August to get done of all of the other legislative things that remain on the list of things to do for the General Assembly. Our legislation, House Bill 356, that contains the provisions on IIANC's legislative agenda, most notably a further clarification of the Certificate of Insurance law, further refinement of the replacement cost estimator issues that we've addressed to make sure lenders are not compelling agents to provide that. There is one issue that is remedied in that bill, and as a result of it not having been taken up yet, creates a little bit of a problem. We were successful last year in pushing for a change to the law so that if a person is subject to the inexperienced operator surcharge on their vehicle insurance, that they must maintain continuous liability coverage to maintain a valid driver's license in North Carolina. The effective date in the original legislation was July 1st of this year. And the carriers, in their negotiation with the Division of Motor Vehicles about the reporting requirements to make the law administratable, had asked for that effective date to be extended to July 1st of 2027 because the legislature adjourned and hadn't yet completed its work on House Bill 356, where the provision to extend the effective date is included. Technically, the law has gone into effect, but I don't think there will be a wholehearted effort on the part of DMV or the Department of Insurance or anybody relative to this yet. I think everybody's acknowledged that the effective date will be extended once the General Assembly gets back into session. So a few agents have contacted me asking a question about that. Can't really say to ignore the law, but I think probably everybody understands that it's going to be extended. And so I don't think there'll be a rigorous effort to implement it, at least right away. One final thing on the healthcare front, a health insurance issue that's come up really out of Washington. There was the prohibition under the Biden administration about short-term limited duration health plans. The Department of Insurance, in conversations with us, had come up with some proposed language to authorize that at the state level. What the Trump administration had suggested is if a state wanted to, the regulator of insurance in a state wanted to do it, they just needed to tell the carriers to ignore the federal limitation, which the commissioner of insurance here said he was uncomfortable doing. But we do have language. Everyone's agreed. We've run it by the health insurance carriers. It's just a matter of finding a place in the legislation that's currently available to insert that language. And we're working with Senator Jim Bergen, who's an IIANC member and a chair of the Senate Healthcare Committee, to try to identify that. I feel pretty confident at this point we'll be able to get that done by the time the legislature adjourns the end of August.
We're also wanting to mention that IANC Governmental Affairs, we have a new project. It's going to blah, 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 blah. Excuse me. It's going to be called our iLead Top Gun project. It's pretty much just for our young agents and our members who want to know more about making public policy and how it actually works.
Yeah, it's a great idea, I think, for a younger generation of insurance agents to have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about how advocacy and politics works. We know that is true for insurance agents, is true for any profession, that our members are their best advocates. And talking to legislators about what really happens on a daily basis in an insurance agency, we just want to make sure the next generation of IIANC members are thoroughly knowledgeable and understand and appreciate what the process of getting an idea enacted into law actually is about. But look for more information on that in the next few weeks.
All right. Since the legislature won't be back for the next 2 weeks, check in back with us at the end of the month.